Hi, my name's Leighton Jin. I'm the Director of Development for the American Documentary and Animation Film Festival, also known as AmDocs, which is March 21st to 25th. We have a really great award-winning filmmaker, Aaron Brookner, and his latest film, Mountain Spirit, is a really great look at a brilliant artist from Taiwan. Aaron, can you talk to us a little bit about your film?
Yeah, absolutely. So Mountain Spirit tells the story of a project called Mountain Spirit that Kuei-Chih, who is an environmental artist from Taiwan but working internationally, embarks upon. And it's a story about the creation of his artwork, but also an insight into him as an artist, um, his process, his philosophy behind art and the way in which it can serve as a kind of link between people and nature, um, and and in a kind of very gentle way connect people to the natural elements. So there's a lot of thought that goes behind his work. And so while he's creating this sculpture called Mountain Spirit, which is on Maokong Mountain, which is a very beautiful uh, place in Taipei that overlooks the city, we also kind of take trips into other parts of the country. Taiwan has this amazingly diverse landscape, and he's done a lot of different works there. And seeing other things that he's done and getting to know him and his relationships with people, and the whole kind of film falls under this umbrella of sky, earth, and people, which is a pillar of kind of Kuei-Chi's philosophy um, and his work. And so the film attempts to take you into that space.
And how did you find find him? And then at what point did you decide, oh, this would be a great documentary? What was that process like?
Yeah, well, I received an amazing opportunity through my producer and a company called Taiwan Pitch in Taiwan to make a documentary about anything I wanted to, as long as it was related to Taiwan. And this was really exciting to me. I really have been an aficionado of a lot of Asian cinema and from all over that region. And in many ways, because I always liked the pace of many films and the connection to nature.
Mhm.
Um, and so I went searching, and a friend of mine showed me the work of Kuei-Chih Lee. And I'd never known Kuei-Chi's work before, but he's done a lot of amazing work. And what struck me first was it's very visually arresting works that he makes. Very beautiful, very striking. And then I started reading about his philosophy behind the work. And it was so well thought through and so kind of deep and philosophical, but also thinking about what is art, and when you're working with natural elements, what do those elements represent, and how that is contributing to the meaning of the sculpture, but also what is the life of the sculpture, and where is this going to go after, and what happens to the materials afterwards. And so I was very impressed. And he was an artist just a couple of years older than me, who I felt was really on a very deep level, thinker and an artist. And so I started to connect with him online, and we got along on a few ideas. And I asked what he was working on, because he's always doing things, and I wanted to time it with a particular work, because that way I knew at least, okay, there would be like a beginning, middle, and end to the story, and that would be the creation of the work, not knowing really exactly how else uh, I would get into things yet, because we hadn't met yet. And
Mhm.
so we got on by chatting online. We connected that way, and I took a plunge and went there with my kind of preconceived ideas of what this could be, but by necessity had to be very open when I got there, and very present. And it actually turned into a really, really beautiful experience, and one of the most enjoyable experiences I've had in my filmmaking career. And it was, because right away when I met Koichi on this mountain, um, after 3 days of quarantine in a COVID hotel, which is especially great to be out in nature. We instantly connected, and I instantly connected with his team of two artists there, and we were kind of off and running then. It was quite extraordinary.
I kind of categorize you from what I read. You're an artist, and he's an artist. Can you talk about the combination of Eastern and Western thoughts about art in this movie and how that may be blended? Because when you're talking about him, I kind of think of Asian religions, and that's kind of feels what he does with his art. But it also seems revolutionary because I'm a Western guy, and art is kind of seen as something different. Can you talk about that, the melding of both your ideas about art and how and what kind of enlightenment did you get from this project through from this project through the process?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was really keen to, I mean, I'm a kind of firm believer that in the power of art and films, for example, is the capacity to connect with people emotionally, and that you can't really convince anyone of anything ever. People have to experience it. If you're honest about it, you have to experience something yourself and come to those conclusions. And I really loved that Kuei-Chi's work was doing that. It wasn't in your face telling you about caring about the environment. You need to do this, you need to do that. He very consciously was creating work that, because it was so beautiful and striking, was making people stop, making people take notice, slowing down and connecting with materials, connecting with the space around them. And that his art was actually doing something kind of amazingly um, rewarding and enriching for the people around him. And so I respected that a lot and identified um, with that. I'm always was kind of interested in Eastern philosophies, and I practice Shaolin Kung Fu, and I'm interested in Taoism and these and Buddhism and Confucianism, and so Kuei-Chi, I mean, grew up. Um, his family were rice farmers. He grew up spending a lot of time in Taoist temples, and a lot of the philosophies around Taoism, the connection between people and nature, and also the iconography in Taoist temples, like clouds and a lot of the shapes he was pointing out to me in one scene when we go to Jinan Temple, which is a famous Taoist temple near the site of his work. Looking through um, those elements, and so this was something that we kind of connected on very much. We were speaking very much the same language in regards to that. When it came to sorry, I just got a phone call. Energy. Um, and so yeah, as far as the filmmaking process went with that, I really didn't know what to expect. And at some point early on, Kuei-Chi said, "You're very brave." Just showing up here. He said, I think he even joked, he's like, "I could be a murderer," you just show up from wherever in Taiwan and then to go and do this movie. But I was very much looking at an opportunity to immerse myself into a new place and discover it using cinematic tools. And so I kind of brought with me a very selected, kit of the kinds of shots I knew I wanted to explore. I wanted to very much explore people within the scope of nature. I also wanted to very much get into the details of the materials that are used, see what kind of nature shows up during the process of him making art, and see the interaction between the artists and between the artist and nature. And so all these things became a really kind of interesting um, filmmaking exercise, if you will. And my hope with the film is that I'm able to help a viewer go and experience this world of Kuei-Chih Lee, which I think is just very, very special in 2024. Also, because I was so blown away by how hard they work. People forget maybe sometimes, maybe they don't, maybe they do, I don't know, but artists are workers. work really, really hard,
Hmm.
making his work sculptures like day in, day out in the elements, out in the storms, out in the sun, the baking heat, physically taxing, mentally hard work. And I also, let's be honest, filmmaking is very challenging work and also really taxing. And I kind of identified with that and respected that a lot and was also happy to kind of to show that, at the end of the day, it's about the doing.
Hmm.
And it's good to talk about issues. Yes, it's important. Awareness is important, but really what defines things is what gets done and what the act of getting done shows to others and inspires others to continue.
Yeah, just you talking about it, I'm excited about the process and the thought that goes into his art, and I think that's going to make for a really exciting feature to experience. I know you mentioned it a little bit. How much do you think exposing him to the Western world? I mean, because I guess I'm not exposed to a lot of art from the East, me personally, even though
Yeah.
I am Chinese. But would do you think this is going to open up some doors and maybe some and bridge and connect the two worlds?
I would love it if it does. I know he's done quite a lot of work in Europe and in he was in Iceland last year, and his whole process is fascinating because he goes to a place first. It's also site specific. So, he has ideas and sketches which are very detailed along a philosophical map. I mean, he has these very intricate drawings of, the elements of Taoism and how they fit. And it's the way that he processes, the emotion as a way to translate it into a blueprint for the work. But anytime he goes someplace, he needs to see it. He needs to use, local materials which have a significance to the work. Like, for example, just in Mountain Spirit, mountains, he wants to talk about, there's bamboo on the mountains. So the frame is made with bamboo. Mountains have changing seasons, changing time. So he has parts with leaves in it, which will be orange and then they will fade over time. So the sculpture will be changing. And so I mean, I would love for Kuei-Chih and that way of thinking to be, you know, everywhere and certainly into the West because I think his process really makes you think of what you're using. He told me often when he goes to a new place to do a project and traveling, he asks people, what happens to the garbage in this town? Most people have no idea
Yeah.
where things go next. We're
Yeah.
very kind of limited into how we see things. And he really is a thinker of where is the origin of the materials that we're using? How can they be formed to make something? And where will they go after? And I think that idea has caught on maybe in, fashion industry. There's talk of, sustainability. There's a lot of talk about sustainability, but um, I think the act of him doing it and seeing a sculpture get created and then also changing over time and going back into the organic, origin of it is very special. And it is a different way of thinking about art.
Hmm.
And it's actually a very powerful way to to talk about environmental issues, to talk about care for the, planet because it puts people in a very different frame of mind when they're in nature, surrounded by artwork. You can feel it on your skin that you're made of these same elements, and it connects with you in a way that um, hopefully can transform a person and carry that way of thinking into day-to-day life. I certainly, after meeting with Kuei-Chih and working with him, thought about where things end up much more than I had before. I was changed.
And then meeting with him, does that and seeing his process, how does it inspire, influence you going forward with your art as a filmmaker?
Well, I think for me, filmmaking is really it's many things, but it's also a way in which to experience and view the world. I mean, I've always been fascinated and worked in a lot of different elements of arts and interested in, writing or image or sound and, but there's still something to me that's so rewarding about filmmaking is that you get to play with all of these elements, and you get to experience new worlds and new people. And so, I never had any idea that, I would be going to Taiwan to make a film with an environmental artist with these very compelling philosophies who I would just connect with, in a very real way. It was a very beautiful thing that, because of the act of making a film, this could happen. And for me, that's very much, I do a lot of different things. I write, I produce, um, and I direct, but always there's a part of me that has, uh, certain films that I get into as a director, are very much about understanding the world, processing something, a sense of discovery, something I want to know about, and that energy, and then the way that kind of manifests, kind of becomes, or becomes part of the storytelling. And I tried to, with Mountain Spirit anyway, put that curiosity, that element of discovery, taking a viewer with me, into the story.
And then what was it like to be in Taiwan and spend extended amount of time there? I mean, was it the first time you were there?
Yeah, it was my first time in Asia, actually.
Oh, wow.
Um, it was amazing. Yeah, it was on the heels of COVID. So there were still kind of regulations. So it was very disorienting when you get there and you go right into a COVID hotel, and it's sort of like strange. But then when I got out, I was really extra happy to kind of be free. And I was blown away by Taiwan. It's really an incredible place. I think of the city, but there's, I went to the wetlands and mountains, and there's hot springs. Um, the people were very kind. The food was amazing, really amazing food. And it was just a very beautiful experience, and to connect with people on the other side of the world, in that way. It's one that I was, really grateful for, to be able to go there. Yeah.
I'm a little jealous. I heard where you went. I was like, man, because that's on my bucket list to go. If I can't make it, at least I can experience a little bit of it through your film, which and probably things that I might not naturally go to. So I'm very excited to see your film. So this is going to be exciting. And then you have a lot of family. You've come from a family of creatives. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I wanted to be a filmmaker since I was a little boy because my uncle was a director, Howard Brookner, who died from AIDS very tragically when he was buried on his 35th birthday.
Oh,
And so it was an awful loss. He had made several, really amazing films, one on William Burroughs, one on Robert Wilson, and a fiction film with Madonna and Matt Dillon called Bloodhounds of Broadway. But he left, a very strong mark in me, and I later kind of, I wanted to pursue filmmaking, or thought that filmmaking was a possibility to pursue because of him. That's for sure.
mhm.
Of course, I fell in love with it in my own ways. But yeah, then later kind of paid it back by looking for his first film to put out, and remaster it, the William Burroughs film, which led to this kind of crazy wild goose chase of discoveries of film and pieces of work that he had left behind scattered with different people. And so I turned that into a film, that dual act of discovering both the work and also the memories of who Howard was, and turned that into a film called Uncle Howard. Um, and Yeah, and I'm still very much working with William Burroughs related material. The archive that my uncle left behind, more kept showing up even in 2022. So that's been an ongoing um, an ongoing project. But Howard was very much from that kind of New York, um, school of, like punk rock filmmaking, in the way that, punk rock is more about the emotion first and then the form.
Mhm.
And it's about feeling. And I think that has really kind of, influenced me as a filmmaker a lot, because I always seem to kind of get led first by the emotion around something, and then my mind starts to kind of think in terms of filmic language of how best this could be expressed, you know. So it's become just like this ongoing way of processing the world, really.
You know, it's just to me, it was just interesting the way you talked about your uncle's process, kind of like the process for this film, where you let the emotions kind of shape it, because that's what it sounds like with Mount Spirit. It's just, and it's just, I just think it's just kind of a beautiful legacy of his that that his art lives on beyond him, and he influences you several years after his passing. I'm going to be a little bit of geek here. I'll talk about your the first thing that influenced you, that made you want to be a filmmaker, was that film that had Madonna and Matt Dillon. What do you remember of that experience?
Well, I remember a lot around that experience because Howard was, I went to school in the West Village,
Hmm.
and Howard was making this big movie, and part of it was filmed in the West Village. So I remember, like walking home from school one night, there's like these picture cars from the 1920s and fake snow and everything was magical. But I remember, the biggest things for me were being on set, and he was doing a scene with Madonna and Randy Quaid. And the morning I was like sitting back, it was like a nightclub scene. I was sitting back on the side with my coloring pencils. I was always drawing as a kid. And then it brought me down, and I sat with him on his knee in the director's chair while he's doing this scene with Madonna and Randy Quaid on a swing, which was extraordinary. And the feeling that I still remember to this day, which is one of the things I always love about filmmaking, is it's like this feeling of warmth. The light and the creativity and the kind of miracle of all these really creative people working together to create something that doesn't exist. It's just fantastic. And all of that I remember so viscerally, followed by lunch with Howard and Madonna. And we had Quaker's rice cakes. And, this was like, to put it in perspective, my class photo from that year, one of my friends in school had like a huge t-shirt with Madonna, like Vogue on the thing. So like Madonna was, like Beyonce, Lady Gaga, all wrapped into Taylor Swift, all into one and one thing. So of course I told all my friends, and they all accused me of being a liar. I saw Madonna yesterday. Anyway, but it was very special. And then Madonna was really a close friend to Howard and a real great supporter of his when he was sick with AIDS. She was very bold in going to the hospital where Howard was and other AIDS patients were. And, she made a point to kiss Howard on the mouth, to just kind of embrace her friend and to break the stigma of, treating AIDS victims as, pariahs. And so she did so much, including into her latest tour, which I saw. She has a beautiful AIDS tribute during the song Live to Tell, where she drops banners of artists like Keith Haring, who died from AIDS, and she has a beautiful banner of Howard,
Wow.
which was dropped from a photograph that we found while making Uncle Howard. So it was really nice to see that image out there and see that she's sharing Howard with her very vast audience. It's very touching.
Wow. I thank you for sharing that story. That's a beautiful story about Madonna that I think sometimes people, overlook because she's such this great artist, and sometimes we focus on different things. But that's such a beautiful story about her.
She's done
Just
so
tribute.
much and such a hard worker also, again, like with Kuei-Chih in his way and Madonna. I mean, just the level of work that goes in. I just have so much respect for her and for any artist who, is able to do all that.
I think that's going to do it for right now. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to talk to me and share these stories. The movie just sounds beautiful, and just the stories of your Uncle Howard were just beautiful, and I really appreciate taking the time. I have goosebumps just talking to you. It's just really
I appreciate
just
that.
it was really a great experience. And unfortunately, I guess you won't be able to make it here, but I hope people will still come out here and experience this movie. I think it's just going to be a really revolutionary for a lot of people, especially artists, to take a look. at
I hope
another.
so. I'm really proud of the film and really happy to be sharing, Kuei-Chi's work. And I'm really delighted that, your audiences will get a chance to see it. So thank you.
And again, the film festival, the American Documentary Animation Film Festival, is March 21st to 25th at Palm Springs Cultural Center. Get your tickets quick. We're talking about Madonna, but her ex Sean Penn's our opening night guest, and just get your tickets quick. It's going to be a great festival, great films, including Mount Spirit by Aaron Brookner. I'm sorry, I'm so tongue tied right now, just thinking about everything we talked about. But thank you very much for speaking with me. And then we'll see everyone March 21st to 25th. Thank you very much.
Thank you.